Hello everyone, my name's Thomas McBride, and I wanted to share with everybody a letter I've been working on for the Director of Veterans Affairs Healthcare System concerning my treatment by the Veterans Affairs for the last couple of years. Dear Dr. Kenneth H. Mizrach, Director, first, I'd like to thank you for your time and dedication to our veterans. My name is Thomas J. McBride, and I am writing this letter at the very least to inform you of my personal perception of Veterans Affairs' commitment to honor Americans' veterans. I do not claim that I speak for anyone else's point of view, but I am merely expressing my perspective based on my own personal experiences. Being a former Corpsman of Marines, DES pilot program subject, current OIF/OEF veteran, and current Veterans Affairs patient, I hope we both can see the literal value of this form of expression. At the time of writing this, my faith in the VA's ability to uphold its mission to commitment and excellence has diminished. As previously mentioned, I served for the United States Marine Corps as a United States Navy Corpsman Fleet Marine Force. I was injured October 16, 2008 in Afghanistan as a member of the Embedded Training Team 5 TAC 3. It was friendly fire by the U.S. Army. They dropped a 120 mortar in the wrong spot. Side note. Since my combat injury, having a true voice in my health care has been near to impossible. I have found that the routes to recovery have been an assembly of jumping from one diagnosis checklist to another. Perhaps the DES pilot program in effect during the year 2008 was to expedite the medical evaluation process. However, I feel it only exploited the system. Perhaps I made the initial error during spring of 2009, approximately 5 months after injury, of denying anything out of the ordinary. Like many barrels that do not make much sound, I denied any issues incubated under the surface. Personally, I do not know how institutions expect combat veterans to analyze and inquire into deep-seated psychological and emotional issues within months of their traumatic experience. As I awaited my departure from active duty, I knew that each appeal against my 0% consideration for post-traumatic stress disorder prolonged my progress. I feel that I was basically backpedaling from my initial interview with Veterans Affairs representative as a DES pilot program patient. How does a member of the military service have a combat injury resulting in a right below the knee amputation without any post-traumatic stress disorder? As I had to explain my position to experts and the time span between October 2008 and June 2010, it seemed that the medical personnel were more concerned about job security than about patient treatment. I believe healthcare is about shades of gray within a black and white boundary. When a provider is more concerned about putting checks in the boxes, virtually or metaphorically, he or she is doing a disservice to their patient. During my medical board appeals of 2009, I was forced to travel to Washington, D.C. and explain in detail what traumatic experience I had as a combat medic and combat advisor. My original separation date was November 2008. However, I did not medically retire from the United States Navy until June 2010. It was to my understanding that because the Department of Defense did not recognize my post-traumatic stress disorder, under the DES pilot program, Veterans Affairs also could not consider it. Supposedly due to a technical error, I did not receive my 40% disability, $640 a month, for 5 months upon my separation from the military. I did not qualify for unemployment or Social Security disability. Recently, September 2011, I got my second notice of ineligibility because Social Security disability does not consider me disabled. I had no income and I was forced to live out of my car, and I was homeless 2 months after my retirement. I withdrew $9,000 of my thrift savings plan, approximately 10% of my military career pay, and accumulated over $10,000 on credit cards. The real problem started when Dr. Tonya T. Masino, San Diego VA Regional Office, classified me as financially incompetent on May 23, 2011. Being labeled as financially incompetent started a spiral of events that I feel hindered my ability to advocate for myself. Dr. Tonya T. Masino convinced me to accept the financial incompetency and then started me on a regime of medications and a possible diagnosis of bipolar. She even stated, "You may be bipolar, but don't worry, we can make that service connected." To the best of my knowledge, being bipolar cannot be service connected unless the patient has a predisposition. To my understanding, you're either born bipolar or you're not. I can only see this as an act of betrayal and an action for control. What I find offensive is that I was forced into a compromising situation due to the improper transfer of funds, but also lacked the proper recognition of obvious psychological consideration, while the United States government could not handle their finances properly, and I'm referring to the possible government shutdown in the not so distant past. I understand with the fiduciary and the incompetency determination, there are other incentives for those in the financial management departments. My personal perspective is that when the psychiatrist heard money, that was when she turned from being an advocate to being an opportunist. This is another instance that has defeated my trust in the liaisons and advocates in place to help veterans. Most recently, during the weeks of December 2011, I drove across country to return to my permanent home of address. Now in the presence of my immediate family, on December 30th, 2011, I called Veterans Affairs to let them know that I was going to comply with the financial incompetency determination, and I assigned my parents as the fiduciary. I was informed when I called Veterans Affairs last Friday, when I wrote this, that my funds were suspended because I failed to follow up on my appeal. To my perception, I believe that Veterans Affairs has forced me between the rock and the hard place. Either I comply with the label of incompetent, or they cut off my funds. To me, this does not make much sense. I also believe it is ironic to put pressure of financial stress on a veteran. I was insulted, and I feel most would be, because it took a psychiatrist's opinion to create an obstacle that has consumed the last 8 months of my affairs. The time frames of which to comply or contest determinations I find are stringent. And dealing with somebody who may or may not have a stress disorder, I find a little counterintuitive. My disability funds have been suspended since September due to me not following up on the appeals process to the fiduciary determination. On January 1st, 2012, I assigned my father to be the fiduciary and to handle my funds until I can jump through the hoops of the Veterans Affairs. I was informed by the Military Order of the Purple Heart that my funds may not be released for several months. I do not know what Veterans Affairs expect individuals to do when they cut off their livelihood. I am more than willing to discuss in detail the steps we can do as a healthcare team to resolve these matters. I find that whether you are doing something right or wrong, it is hard to fight the power structure that is the Veterans Affairs. The moment you try to assert yourself, you're labeled as not being able to control yourself or non-compliant. It seems that the provider's word is valued over yours, because yours as in the patient, because of their title. After the service to your country and sacrificing more than most will ever, you just want control over your own life. Either I dedicate all my efforts in my life to the system, or they take away my livelihood. I would also like to contribute to the Veterans Affairs system. It would make sense to have people doing the evaluations to have some sort of life experience. And that's pretty much where I left off on the letter, and I just wanted to make this video for any kind of feedback, because I'm not the only one who goes through this battle with the VA. And a lot of people say, you know, they should be taking care of you, but they're not. You know, and I have found from my personal experience that this society pushes you to either be crazy, criminal, or on drugs, legal or illegal. And things need to change. So thank you for your time, and I'd appreciate if anybody had any advice, or at least if I could just get the word out. Because, you know, I have sacrificed a lot of my life and of my time and my body for this country. And all I want to do is be able to live my own life. I appreciate it, and have a good day, everybody.